Hey everybody, this is Pastor Paul Eaton. I'm here with Patrick Callahan. He's a deacon and the leader of our biblical care counseling. In this session, we want to go over policies, procedures, processes involved in biblical care counseling. And the first one we really like, it's our 10 Commandments of counseling, and we're going to go through this and talk about it. And then we're going to go through some forms, how you take notes, how you start counseling, how you go through the continuity of care, how you end counseling sessions. But let's talk about the 10 Commandments of counseling. And this predates me and you. I think it's a really good list, Pat. What do you think?
Indeed. And it really is the basis to which we make policy concerning counseling.
Right. And it covers a lot of stuff, and it's just common sense. Let's talk about number one, gender boundaries. And here at Harvest, we want men to counsel men, women to counsel women, men and women together if you're a counseling team to counsel couples, or men counseling couples. So that's the way we set things up, and I think it's a very common sense approach to this. Never counsel somebody of the opposite sex, particularly alone. So it's a very helpful guideline. Why don't you tell us about number two?
Mandatory reporting. As servants here at the church, we're to, the pastors and children's ministries leaders, and those of us who do biblical care. We will occasionally encounter a situation where we may need to report anything that might be suspect in terms of child, where a child might be at harm. And so we are mandated reporters by law.
Right.
And so consequently, we have a training program for that. And then we also have policies and procedures on how we go about making those reports.
Yes, and we'll set you up in this training with the mandated reporter training. It's an online course that you go through. It's absolutely mandatory for pastors, teachers, people in government, everybody, but it's trickling down to where more and more they want even volunteers who are doing this kind of work to be there and make sure that you understand mandated reporting. It's a legal obligation that we have. The next one is suicidal concerns, and this will come up, and it comes up more and more. And so if you are in a position where somebody is talking about suicide, contemplating suicide, and you have a reasonable concern that this is a reality, we need to notify a pastor, certainly, but also there's a suicide hotline. What's the number?
988.
Just 988.
988.
Just like 911, 988.
Yep. You can call that anywhere in the country.
Yeah, and there's some real resources to help you with that. Number four, spiritual warfare situations. Spiritual warfare, demon possession, oppression. We understand that as a believer, greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. You cannot be possessed. For the non-believer, it may not be so. And every so often we have situations where you're like, this I'm discerning is something that is a spiritual fight going on here. What do we do in those circumstances?
Yeah, indeed. We want to, first of all, put on the full armor of God.
Yeah.
And secondly, if you feel this is getting above your pay grade,
if you will. We're not paying you, by the way.
Exactly.
Lord is.
But if you need the assistance of somebody else, a pastor or another counselor to come alongside you, wherever two or more are gathered together, Jesus is there in your midst. And sometimes you just need a little bit of a support network. And so we want to encourage you, if you feel that you're discerning that there's something more going on here, then certainly you want to protect yourself and the individual.
That's right.
And by going into it 2 by 2.
That's right. Hey, and that's biblical, isn't it?
It is.
That's how Jesus sent them out. Location and identification. We want to do counseling at the church, in our offices. We can open offices during off hours. You can come in during regular hours. Not a wise idea to do so outside of the church walls in your home specifically. If you meet for coffee, once things are established, not a big deal. But we want to make sure the location and identification, and then you'll have backup and support if you need it in those situations.
And I think that also plays into the fact that, when you are counseling with someone, it really is a privacy concern. We're and we'll talk about confidentiality,
Right.
but we don't need to expose them or yourself in any way.
Right, right. Number 6 is about medication. We are in a very medicated world, and people who are dealing with mental issues or needing the biblical care training or counseling will often be on prescribed medications. We are not doctors. We can't advise them on this. We can caution them and say, follow the dosage prescriptions very carefully. We've had situations where someone has got it in their head or been advised to stop taking their medication. And it's funny, you can end up with a psychotic episode by stopping medication as well as the side effects of what's going on with it. We do not advise. Is that clear?
That
Are
is
we very
absolutely clear.
We do not advise in this area because this is a medical doctor or a prescription situation that is beyond our training. Number 7, continuity of care. What is that, Pat?
To avoid musical counselors.
Oh, yes.
In other words, if you start with a counselee, then we want you to remain through with them to to see it through, as long as you are agreeing to meet together and as long as there's a need.
Right.
We try to keep those to a minimum. We don't want to be counseling for the same person for a year.
Yes.
But we don't want them being passed off to other counselors.
And sometimes a counselee will want to trade counselors because they're looking for an answer that they're not getting, and we need to make sure that that doesn't happen. So, and then confidentiality. There's they may come in, a counselee, with a perception that this is completely confidential, like a doctor or a lawyer. It is not. We cannot guarantee anybody confidentiality, certainly because we're mandated reporters, and that would break that. And there are times when we need to compare notes and find out how to best handle a situation. So it's always good to make sure that if someone starts hinting that you can't tell anybody, can you? It's like, well, yeah, this is not confidential counseling. This is something that we're going to give you very clear biblical care to the best of our ability, but we may need to share this with somebody. We're not going to shout it from the rooftops. We're not going to do social posts on that. So we will be reasonably confidential with their private information, but we can't guarantee kind of that, right? So
correct.
Discretion, and that goes to number 9. We kind of hit that. How do you describe that, Pat?
Having discretion. I mean, as a counselor, you need to be discreet. You need to be very personable in order to build confidence with people.
Right.
They have to have confidence in you, and
That's right.
So when you never want to discuss biblical care counseling with matters outside this ministry.
Right. And certainly not gossip, because it's not biblical. And that fits under that. So we need to make sure that we don't share someone's dirty laundry around. And it'd be horrifying if somebody found out that through a counseling situation, people in their group or people that shouldn't know things. So I think that's a good thing to note. And then number 10, personal contact. Be cautious about giving out your personal phone number. Have your counseling meeting. Don't become a counseling or biblical care hotline for somebody. And it's always good to remind them, hey, if you have an emergency, who's on your short list of friends or family members that you can call in these situations? Call them first, and then we'll catch up next time we get together, next time we see each other at church, or a next appointment together. Does that cover that?
Indeed. Yes.
All right.
There's our 10 commandments.
So this is in our notebook. It's all good. I think it covers a lot of area that just gives common sense answers for guidelines. Let's talk about starting out and kind of the intake form for counseling. Somebody comes often to an office, or they could be referred to you. We have a form for them to fill out, don't we?
Yes, we do. And as a matter of fact, we have a recent change to that. We now have an e-form online at harvest.church. There's a tab that you can go to under the About column where it will open up to the front office, and people can actually post their situation, their counseling request, and we can do that. We process that intake form through our secretary, Mary down in the front office.
Yes.
But we also have hard copies for intake forms for counseling, and also for benevolence.
Yeah, and benevolence is if somebody has a financial need that they go through. If that comes up, it will be handled by a staff or high-level volunteers, so don't worry about that. On those intake forms, we're not going to go through every question, but they are very self-explanatory, and they will be very helpful for you to kind of identify where to go in your counseling and biblical advice process.
And it also provides an acknowledgement on their part that they are receiving biblical instruction. That we're not psychologists or doctors, but we're providing them with counsel from a biblical point of reference.
We're doing ministry towards them. That's what we're about.
Exactly.
Doing ministry as a church. And really, one of the things that, and this is an aside, we've covered it before, they need to be attending church, because that's a form of counsel too that we all receive together. That's an aside. And then as you go through and you start setting things up, there's some note taking that you do in the process after each session, correct?
Exactly. We do keep a record of our counseling sessions, and that way we don't get lost. You know, like if we don't see them for a month, you know, we may not just have in our cranium, you know, the recollection of what our last conversation was about. And so we do keep notes, and those notes are done by email.
And good notes mean good times together. Write down the scripture passages that you have. Write down the homework that you've assigned. Make sure that they follow up and bring that homework, and you can check it and not lose track of it. Remind them of the things that you talked about before and the scriptures that you've talked about before, and this is going to be key to doing that. And then we also have a closeout process too. When we come to an end, and we've talked about this in our general sessions, we're not going to be counseling people for weeks and weeks and weeks. We want to give them biblical advice and watch and see that they follow that advice. And usually 3-4 sessions can be what they need, and you're ministering to them and loving on them in that process. But then we end it and we close out and we do some final notes, right?
Yes, indeed. And another thing that we really want to do is promote discipleship.
Right.
And oftentimes, if they need a little bit more, then what we can do is refer them. We've got several really wonderful opportunities for ministry to continue. If it's a marriage issue, we have marriage mentoring.
Yes.
If it's the loss of a loved one, we have our grief share. If it's a trauma or some kind of, critical issue that they have experienced, we have our trauma reboot course. We also have homework assignments, books, and most importantly, our group studies.
Yes, our small groups are a great place for someone to graduate into after they close that out. And one of the things we want to make sure is that we are keeping track digitally. We're using Planning Center, and everybody has a file, and there's a notes section for general notes, but there's also some confidential notes for us to list. If it's confidential, turn it over to our office personnel. They'll help to input that, and that's visible only to pastors and to qualified counselors who need that information, because we don't want that information floating around on their publicly accessible Planning Center files.
Correct.
So, I think that's it. Have we covered everything on your list?
I think so.
All right. That's great. So this is the mechanics. We trust God is going to meet you there when you're in that process of biblical care counseling, otherwise known as discipleship, otherwise known as loving people. So we really expect some great things to take place as you're involved in this process. God bless you guys. Take care.
God bless.